Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Multicultural AFL Football Show. Tonight we review number 9 and also preview round number 10 of the AFL season. I am Vanessa Gatica and I'm joined by my two regular co-panelists, Javier Sincan and Gabriel De Angelo. Hello guys.
Hello Vanessa.
Vanessa, Javier.
Round number 9 was a very predictable round, except for the Adelaide Crow's loss by 1 point. Last Friday night, West Coast came from behind to defeat the Demons. St Kilda pushed Collingwood for 3 quarters, only to stop in the last. The game of the round was the Lions against the Adelaide Crows, which just missed out by a solitary point. Gabriel, what did you take on those games?
They were predictable in the sense that we all expected the result to go the way they did, but not how they went. Because in the game between Brisbane and Adelaide, Brisbane at home are a good team and Adelaide are travelling well. So that one we can sort of cast aside. But the other two games, both Melbourne and St Kilda, nobody expected them to win that game, but they at least were competitive. And I think Melbourne are going to be probably the most upset of the bunch, because that was a game where they could have won. They were doing really, really well. They were playing well. They were leading for most of the game, and then they just let it slip. It's not just the class of the other team. Well, it's West Coast are a classy team, but also the fact that Melbourne, they did choke a little, and I think that they're going to be extremely upset about that. They're going to have sleepless nights about that, because that was one that probably went away. But St Kilda and Collingwood, I was really disappointed being a St Kilda fan, because St Kilda missed so many opportunities. They were just so bad in front of goal. And if St Kilda were accurate, the game would have been obviously much different, but St Kilda would have been well ahead by half-time. Probably in the third quarter, they probably would have had a really good lead. They would have felt good, and they would have gone into the final quarter much better. And who knows, they probably would have won the game. But Collingwood being Collingwood, they're an amazing side. They're one of the favourites, I think. I think Collingwood and Geelong are probably the two teams that we're going to pencil in as the teams to face off in the grand final. But Melbourne and St Kilda, missed opportunities. Brisbane and Adelaide, well, it was a bit expected. Adelaide were always going to fight, and Brisbane were always going to do well at home. So yeah, it was predictable.
Yeah, I believe you nailed it on the head. This year, the only difference between the good and bad teams have been how accurate you are in front of goals. Every team's been at least playing good footy for 3 quarters or so. Even the bad teams, you can say.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's just coming down to how many goals you can kick. And fourth quarter has been quite pivotal this season. And the teams that are good, they are just running rampage in the fourth quarter. And then again, to that exception is North Melbourne probably. But we'll talk about that later. And with these games, I believe that, as you said, they should have won that one. They had game on their terms, they were fast flowing and everything. So they should have won that. And other than that, I think at least we are seeing good footy with every match, and it's very unpredictable in that sense.
Yeah.
You can say that any team can win.
What about the rest of the games? Very predictable results, with the Cats defeating the Bulldogs, Essendon doing the job on Freo at Marvel Stadium, and the Sydney Swans just holding back North Melbourne. On Sunday, we saw Port Adelaide win in the wet against the Gold Coast Suns, Richmond easily beating Houghton, and GWS thrashing Carlton by a whopping 93 points. Javier.
Yeah, well, Cats and Dogs, I believe that was predictable, but I think Bulldogs were very brave. Just that Geelong sort of kept coming back. Every time they would score 1, they would score 2, and the fourth quarter is they just ran away with it. But nothing can go wrong with Geelong at the moment. They've got their forwards doing their job, they've got their midfield doing their job, they've got their backs doing their job. Tom Hawkins, big body at the front, he's just he was pivotal in that game. And then all these midfielders, it's hard to say, is there any team which can beat Geelong? Yes, I think with Dogs, I believe they've done well. Good game in the end, that's all. With the Essendon Fremantle, I believe Essendon, they really need to kick more goals. They're doing it all right, they're winning few games, but it's not there. The kind of list they have, the kind of players they have, they really need to up their ante a bit. Otherwise, they'll be disappointing more of their fans at this stage. And North Melbourne versus Sydney, I don't know, North Melbourne are I think they need to reverse the game a bit. They need to play the fourth quarter first and then then play the rest, because they're doing so good in the fourth quarter, but the rest of the quarters they're doing all right, but not the way they're playing the fourth quarter. So they know what to do and they can do it, which we see in the fourth quarters. But I believe they still need to do something in the first three quarters as well. Richmond and Hawks, I believe I wanted it to be a more better game, but good on the Richmond fans. Like, they must be excited that Dusty Martin is back. So the way he played this game, I think he's back and he's making a big point at the moment. So Port and Gold Coast, I believe we were expecting that anyway. Although Gold Coast, they are playing good footy, but need to be a bit better than that. And some of the chances they missed, I think they'll be ruining those chances as well. And Giants versus Carlton, I expected a bit better than that, but you can see that it's coming. The way Patrick Cripps dealt with that, I think it's going to their head as well. Their performance, that's not a good sign though. If you have a team in developmental stages, I think emotions are taking over, especially Patrick Cripps. We've seen his emotions whenever he loses. His emotions sort of take over him. So all is not lost, but they need to come back with a strong message, and they need to do more work at least on the ground.
Yeah. But with the Geelong and Bulldogs game, yes, it was predictable. We thought Geelong were going to win, but you're right in saying that at least the Bulldogs were brave. You know, Geelong is a very tough assignment, and like you said, it's really hard to sort of pinpoint who exactly is going to be the team that's going to beat them come the pointy end of the season, especially finals. But the Bulldogs, at least they were competitive. Like, we've been saying that the Bulldogs have been a bit hit and miss at times. That they haven't set the world on fire, but there are times where they're doing really well, like against the game against Geelong. There's times where they're doing really bad, like the loss against Gold Coast at home. So they're a bit up in the air, but at least they were competitive. And you can sort of put them in the same boat as Melbourne and St Kilda with their games, like we were just talking about just now. But the other games, like GWS and Carlton, I mean, really, I mean, it is chalk and cheese between two teams that are, one is well and truly developed, while the other is well and truly developing, and they're going to need a lot of time to develop properly. But Sydney and North Melbourne, that's another one where North Melbourne, maybe they could have done much better, and they should have done much better. You know, they're actually much more used to their ground than many other clubs. You know, they play in Tasmania a lot. Hawthorn plays in Tasmania a lot. But Sydney, you know, they're a good travelling side. We don't know why they do so well when they play away from home. Maybe they should just play away from home from now on. But North Melbourne, they're going to rue their opportunity, no pun intended. But they're going to be really upset that was one where they really could have got a big scalp against a team like Sydney. And it's been a while since they've had a big scalp where they've actually beaten a really good top 8 contending team. So North Melbourne, yeah, they're going to be disappointed about that. But the other results, I thought that they were pretty much spot on. You know, Port Adelaide, Richmond, I thought Richmond were just too good for Hawthorn. They're a little bit more class above Hawthorn at the moment. Hawthorn nowhere near as strong as they used to be, and I think they know it as well.
Why Hawthorn is not as strong as it used to be?
Well, they're losing. That's a big sign. Number one, they're losing games, but they just don't have that sort of competitive edge that they used to have. And there's a lot of really key players that have gone to other clubs or they've retired or whatever. So they're sort of going into this rebuilding phase. Hawthorn, they're not as bad as other clubs, obviously, and their redevelopment stage isn't as bad as others. I think that Hawthorn will bounce back because they have that amazing coach, Alistair Clarkson.
Yes.
But this season's not the season. I think that next season will be much better.
Yeah, and I think he really needs to be better than his assistant coaches, Alistair Clarkson.
Thank you, guys. Good points. We will be back with more after the short break. You're watching the Multicultural AFL Football Show. Welcome back to our viewers. I think we may take this opportunity to have a look at some of our top diversity players this week. Essendon star David Zaharakis, Armin Saad, Bashar Houli, and Marcus Bontempelli from the Western Bulldogs. Your assessment of these players and their seasons so far, Javier?
Well, I believe they're all doing all right, but as per their own standards, I don't think they are there yet. Especially we're saying with Essendon, Saad is there for the speed. He's getting there, but he's not getting that much of area to play with at this stage. So he's where he is, he's doing all right. Like he's averaging around, I think, 17 odd disposals or something like that. But he's better player than that, and I think overall, I think that might be the reason that overall Essendon is not playing good. So that's why they are not doing that good as well. It was good to see Zaharakis on the scoring some goals as well. That he scored a couple of goals, but he's been there 11 years. He's been with Essendon Bombers for that long. They know the old players too, so they know their game plan. So Adam Saad came in, he's gelled in well, but Zaharakis probably need to lift his game a bit as well. I'm not saying that he's doing bad, but as I said before, not doing as good as per own standards. And with Bashar Houli, I think that he's been off few games as well. Otherwise, we know that how amazing of a player he is. And even then, the games he played, he made an impact on that. And I believe as the season goes on, he's going to come and do fantastic job. And Marcus Bontempelli, he's a star. He's at the moment, he's carrying the Bulldogs at the moment.
Amazing.
With all the disposals that I think 27 odd disposals, and then he scored 8 goals as well. He could have scored few more than the sort of inaccuracies sort of coming in. But other than that, when it comes to making the game, he's very pivotal. And at the moment, Bulldogs rely heavily on him. Doesn't matter where is he playing, but he's got such a great footy brain at the moment, and he knows everything in advance. So he's very pivotal to Bulldogs, and if they are in top 8, it will be only because of Marcus Bontempelli.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Although with the assessment of Amin Saad, I think maybe it's a little bit too harsh. Not so much, but I mean, like with Amin Saad, he's still got a lot of potential. He just needs a lot more time to sort of develop. The others is no excuse. They're established players, but he's got a little bit more time to sort of settle in and to find his feet at Essendon. I think that he's got the potential to be an extremely good player, but he just needs a little bit more time to sort of really come out of his shell and really find his feet. With David Zaharakis, you're right. David Zaharakis, he's been at that club for 11 years. More now than ever, they need leadership. They need those younger guys who are now the veterans, so to speak, to really step up. And a lot of the problems from Essendon this season was that there was this sort of lack of leadership, this lack of accountability from some of their main players or some of the more established players. And Zaharakis, unfortunately, for good or for bad, he fits into that category. So he's got to really sort of lift his game, as you said, in that area. And I think that Zaharakis is one of those players that can really, out of nowhere, win games just on the back of his own performance. So Zaharakis, he needs to sort of step up. And if Essendon are going to have a good chance of making it to the finals, he's going to be a major player in that. Bashar Houli, Bashar Houli is an excellent player. I still believe that he was robbed of a Norm Smith medal when they beat Adelaide in the grand final. He deserved it much more than Dustin Martin did. But he's an excellent player, and it's great to see him. During Rio, it's Ramadan and he's fasting and he's still playing. He's still got energy.
Amazing,
he's still doing. He's still there, which is fantastic. And he is a very good player. And he's one of those solid players for Richmond. And he's one of those quiet achievers. He's not one that talks a lot or is in the media that much or is exposed as much as Dustin Martin. Yet he just does his job and does it really, really well. And Marcus Bontempelli, he's really improved in leaps and bounds. Last season was a season to forget, but he's starting to get his form again. And if the Bulldogs are going to have a good season, it's because of him.
Definitely, yes. It certainly is all very interesting. And we will be back with a couple of minutes with our selections for this week. In the meantime, hold tight. You're watching the Multicultural AFL Football Show. Moving along, we are now around number 10, and because the competition is so open, positions in the 8 are still very tentative. and any team can make the final 8 with 14 rounds to go. But this week, another 9 matches starting with the Swans against Collingwood from the SCG on Friday night. Saturday, the Hawks take on Port Adelaide over in Launceston, and the Western Bulldogs at Marvel play the Roos. Gabriel.
I think that with the Sydney and Collingwood game, unless there's a genuine reason in terms of injuries or whatever, I can't see any reasons to tip against Collingwood at the moment. They're playing some really, really good footy. I think that Collingwood, they're probably marching towards like a top 4 finish. I really do believe that. I think that they're going to probably even go all the way. I think that Sydney at home, as we've said, we don't know why, we don't know what's going on with the team, but they just do not perform well at home. Sydney, they did have that win against North Melbourne, but having said that, North Melbourne aren't exactly setting the world on fire, and in reality, Sydney maybe should have done a little bit better. They should have beaten North Melbourne much more comprehensively than what they did. So for me, I think Collingwood are going to win and win comfortably. Hawthorn and Port Adelaide. Hawthorn knows Launceston, knows Tasmania very well. Like we said, both Hawthorn and North Melbourne play a lot in Tasmania. Port Adelaide, they're sort of flying under the radar a little bit. They're doing well here, they're doing badly there, but I just don't think that they got enough firepower to beat Hawthorn in Tasmania, even though Hawthorn, they did have that bad loss against Richmond, and as we said, they haven't been having as good a season as they have been in the past. They've been a little bit sloppy this season. And we also have the Jared Roughead saga, but if Clarkson does believe that Roughead has to step aside and let the younger guys come in and play, then so be it. He's the coach after all. And there is method to his madness, as we know he's an excellent coach. And the Western Bulldogs against North Melbourne, I think that the Bulldogs are going to win that one. I think that the Bulldogs, they're slowly building and they are getting better. And I really did like their performance against Geelong. Being competitive against Geelong is, in a way, a victory, so to speak, especially with a team like the Bulldogs. At North Melbourne, I'm not convinced with North Melbourne. I don't think they've got enough quality players to compete with some of the other clubs. I just don't think that they've got that sort of talent pool that many other clubs have. And as we said, we've got players like Bontempelli and Caleb Daniel and all these sorts of players for the Bulldogs. When they're in form, they're dangerous. So for me, I think the Bulldogs should win that one.
Well, as you said, Collingwood, we can't really find a reason for them to lose. And it's at SCG, which is not a good venue for Sydney to win. So it's Collingwood for me in that one. And Hawthorn, I believe it's going to be a very close match, considering the kind of form Hawks are in at the moment. And I believe Port Adelaide's got a good chance of winning. However, as you mentioned, they play their probably best games in Launceston as well. So I think they will probably come on top with that game. And Bulldogs and North Melbourne, I think it's going to be a close one. But I believe Scott needs to put in some sort of confidence into North Melbourne to win that one. Because Bulldogs will be riding high, as you mentioned, that to play against a good team. And they will be playing good against good teams. Yeah. They have lost to Gold Coast and Carlton, but they're not that of a good teams, but against Sydney and Hawks, they played their best footy. So I think so that could be a thing that can go against Bulldogs. But then again, that gives them extra confidence as well to do well. So I believe I'm going to go with Bulldogs as well on this one.
3 more games on Saturday. The Adelaide Crows at home take on the West Coast Eagles, while the Gold Coast Suns at home take on the Cats. And at the G, Richmond and Essendon go head-to-head. Javier, who do you see these games panning out?
Well, I don't know who. I don't care who wins in this game. But with the Adelaide,
show's over.
Yeah, with the Adelaide and West Coast Eagles, I just want to see a few marks from some magic of Eddie, some marks from Ryan, and then just set the world on fire with that game. So I believe it's going to be a close one. But I'm just going to give Adelaide a bit of home advantage, and the fact that their players are sort of getting their form back. Taylor Walker, Eddie Betts, so they might come on top. And with Gold Coast Suns versus Geelong, it's an easy picking. Geelong, guys, we can't. It will be good if they are competitive, Gold Coast Suns, but Geelong. And then we have Richmond and Essendon. I think it's going to be a close one. but I believe Richmond will prevail because they got so much confidence in themselves, and with the Dustin Martin having a good game, I think Essendon's going to lose this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Richmond, some people are sort of underestimating them a little bit too much. They did have a bad start to the season, but I think they're slowly starting to build momentum and slowly get into form, and they have one of their generals in Dustin Martin back into form as well. So I think Richmond are going to be a little bit too good for Essendon. I would not be surprised if Essendon give it a really, give it a red hot go and make it competitive against Richmond, but the quality, I think, is more so embedded with Richmond more so than with Essendon. So I'm going to pick Richmond, Gold Coast and Geelong. Geelong for me. I think Geelong will win that quite comfortably, but hopefully Gold Coast, just for their sake, can actually make it at least slightly entertaining. And Adelaide versus West Coast, I really do believe that one's going to be one of the hardest ones. That's one's going to be pick of the round, because you got two reasonably good teams that are travelling really well. But I think Adelaide at home, and the fact that a lot of people are sort of underestimating them as well. A lot of people are sort of still in that mindset of that really bad season that they had, and that whole scandal and the whole problems that they had off season with the camp and all that is still fresh in their mind. It's like, well, Adelaide have moved on from that, and you can tell. And some of the players are really finding form at the right time. So for me, I'm going to pick Adelaide, but hopefully it's going to be a good one too.
Thank you, guys. On Sunday, we have the Melbourne Demons take it on the GWS Giants. This game can go anywhere. Fremantle in Perth hosts the Brisbane Lions, and St Kilda clash with Carlton at Marvel Stadium. Both sides suffering huge losses last week. Who will win, Gabriel?
Well, we always say that GWS, they've got an amazing team, they're brilliant, they're fantastic and all that, but at the MCG, they are horrible. They've only won 2 games at the MCG. They are not comfortable playing at the MCG, whether it's too big or the occasion or whatever. At the MCG, they are just not doing very well. And even though Melbourne at the present time aren't playing their best footy, and you pretty much can say that their season is pretty much over, I think they've got a good chance of beating GWS only for that reason. If GWS are going to have that sort of gimme win at the MCG, this is it. If they blow this, then they may as well sign a petition to the AFL to make sure they never play at the MCG ever again, because if they can't win this game, then don't play at the MCG ever again. But I think Melbourne, only on the basis that GWS are so bad at the MCG. Fremantle versus Brisbane, that one can go either way. They're both sort of similar in a way in terms of development and the younger guys performing. I think that Brisbane can cause an upset, but I think Fremantle, because they're at home, and St Kilda and Carlton, well, I think St Kilda are going to win that one. Carlton, they're just very, very raw.
GWS Giants, I think they really need to prove a point that they've done some experimentation in the last match, and now they have to come up with the results. And if they don't, what you said, I agree with that. Giants really need to focus on winning at MCG, and if they can't, there's no point in getting to the finals. And other than that, I believe Fremantle and Brisbane Lions is going to be a close one, but at Perth, I'm going to give it to Fremantle. And St Kilda versus Carlton, I think it's going to be a close one. St Kilda, I think they should win this one. However, I believe Carlton will come back on this, and I'm going to tip Carlton for this.
Okay.
Thank you for your tips. That's all we have time for this week. You have been watching the Multicultural AFL Football Show all around Australia on the Community Radio Network, Community TV on Aurora TV Foxtel. We are also online through the NEMBC's AFL Footy website. See you next week when our special guest will be Xavier Moloney, the AFL's Diversity Manager. I am Vanessa Gatica.
I'm Harbir Singh.
I'm Gabriel D'Angelo.
And thank you for watching.